The sun rises over the battlefields around Gettysburg. A new day, July 3, 1863. For 2 days, these fields have been the scene of fierce fighting between the Southern Army of Northern Virginia, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, and the Northern Army of the Potomac, under the command of George G. Meade, between the Confederates from the South and the Unionists from the North. At the start of this third day, the number of dead and wounded on both sides has already risen to 35,000 men, and the battle is undecided yet. How much more bloodshed will this day bring? For a moment we jump into the present, a grey September afternoon on Cemetery Ridge near Gettysburg. Cars slowly pass a long row of monuments, silent witnesses in stone to the ferocious combat of July 3, 1863. The people in the cars can hardly comprehend what happened here on that day, just as little as we can. Back to July 3, 1863. Unionist soldiers on Cemetery Ridge keep a close watch on the Confederate lines, alert to the slightest movement in the enemy's camp across the fields on Seminary Ridge. The statue of Robert E. Lee on Seminary Ridge. What attack plan does he have in mind for this third day? This is the defensive line of the Unionists of the North, the Army of the Potomac, at sunrise on the third day. Everyone expects General Robert E. Lee to attack the center of the line at Cemetery Ridge. But the first sound of a drummer is at the top of Culp's Hill, on the right flank of the Unionist line. Why there? Because the Unionists from the North yesterday have lost the area around Spangler Spring to the Confederates from the South, and they want to recapture that lost territory. Nowadays, this viewing tower on top of Culp's Hill gives a magnificent overlook of the whole area. On the morning of July 3, 1863, the Unionists from the North launched their first attack from this place, a very wooded hill. The heavy musket volleys that have thundered here for hours on the day before caused many scars in the battered trees. From their position at the top of Culp's Hill, the Unionists of the North succeed to recapture this area on the morning of day 3 of the battle, but at the cost of many lives. We drive over Seminary Ridge, which in 1863 was the line of the Confederates from the South. An enormous row of cannons, impressive, but they give only a limited impression of the firepower that Robert E. Lee had assembled here on July 3, 1863. Around 1 p.m. on that day, the Confederates of the South, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, readied their cannons for the largest artillery barrage of the whole Civil War. And then comes picket charge. Nearly 12,000 Confederate infantry from the south surge from Seminary Ridge towards Cemetery Ridge. They are advancing shoulder to shoulder in a broad line of about 2 miles. From the enemy side on Cemetery Ridge, this must be an impressive sight. So many soldiers marching forward, crossing fences, crossing the Emmitsburg Road, crossing the open fields, getting closer and closer to Cemetery Ridge, the line of the Unionists of the North. The Unionists give them a relentless fire. The fields soon run red with blood. Many Confederates lose their lives in this Pickett's Charge, named after the Confederate Major General George Edward Pickett.
James Ewell Brown Stuart is Robert E. Lee's cavalry commander. On July 3, in the same time Pickett's charge begins, Stuart moves his cavalry to the east of Gettysburg. Doing so, he tries to cut off the Union rear. When Pickett's troops enter the Union line from the west, Stuart's riders will attack the Union line from the east. That's the plan. But 3 miles east of Gettysburg, Stuart and his horsemen collide with the Unionist cavalry under the command of General David M. Gregg along the Hanover Road, in the so-called East Cavalry Fields. Let it sink in for a moment. Thousands of men on horseback fight a hand-to-hand, blow for blow, cut for cut, and oath for oath duel. Horses and riders collide at full gallop, a swirling, brutal close combat that lasts nearly half an hour. One of the largest saber-to-saber melee of the Civil War. Stuart and his Confederate horsemen fail in cutting off the Union rear. And how did the battle unfold during Pickett's charge on that open field?
Marching over the fields, all eyes of the Confederates focus on this copse of trees in the center of the Union line. The angle on Cemetery Ridge. Here Pickett charged crashed in brutal hand-to-hand fight. This is the so-called high water mark, referring to the farthest point reached by the Confederate troops where they came closest to breaking the Union lines. More than 2,600 men of Pickett's division, including all of his brigade commanders, are either killed or severely wounded. Afterward, Pickett reports to General Robert E. Lee, "General, I have no division anymore." One of these brigade commanders is the Confederate General Lewis Armistead. He leads his men towards the angle. Only a few meters from the Union guns, he gets mortally wounded. This Confederate Armistead is a very close friend to the Unionist Major General Winfield Scott Hancock. But in this bloody war they are enemies. The wounded Armistead gives his watch to one of Hancock's soldiers to bring the watch to his friend. Armistead dies from his injuries. Hancock recovers from his injuries. This statue tells the story of friendship and respect between enemies, portraying a moment of kindness amid the horrors of the Civil War. Pickett's charge has broken against the Union defenses. The Confederate hopes for victory has been shattered. The next morning, the Army of Northern Virginia starts its retreat from Gettysburg. On that same July 4, 1863, the Confederate forces defending the city of Vicksburg, Mississippi, surrendered to Union General Ulysses Grant. The Confederate surrender at Vicksburg, combined with the Confederate defeat at Gettysburg, is a crucial turning point in the Civil War. The Gettysburg National Cemetery. Over 3,500 Union soldiers were buried here. The remains of Confederate soldiers were later removed to southern cemeteries. Long rows of small stones marked unknown on the Gettysburg National Cemetery. Nearly 1 1,000 soldiers buried in this ground have never been identified. This natural cemetery attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors annually. For many Americans, the cemetery as a part of the Gettysburg National Military Park is a symbol of sacrifice, national unity, and the enduring meaning of the Civil War.